Coming up on this episode, I ask the question, what's your niche? And how do you define it? As always, I'll use myself as the proverbial guinea pig and kind of try to dissect how I figured out what my niche is, the barriers that I've kind of had to stumble over the past year and a half, and really what does having a niche mean? Because there are so many different ideas of it, and is it even important? I, there is so much to dissect in this. I go all over the place with this episode. But I do think it is a valuable one, and I think it's actually taught me a thing or two sitting here talking about it. So, without more rambling, let's go get into this episode. What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Perspective Chasers podcast. I am your host, John, and on this episode, I'm talking about what is your niche. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot lately for myself, and I've had a few realizations kind of along the way. Now, as always, there's the usual definition of what a niche is, which is, in simple terms, basically like a subcategory. So if something has an umbrella term, say for example, fitness, a niche within that fitness might be something like CrossFit or powerlifting or whatever else. All it is kind of like a layer of more specificity, if I've said that right, because that normally twists me up. But yeah, basically, it's just narrowing the market. And sometimes you can want to narrow the market or think that your brand or your ideas or whatever else fit in a certain niche, or you're trying to get a certain target audience. But you might be completely missing the mark entirely. So taking some time to actually figure out what is your niche and what are the different characteristics in that is important as hell. Not just for you, but for your brand, for your business, for your podcast, for your interest, for whatever it is that you're applying this to. Because these rules and these realizations will apply across various things, but we're squeezing them in this box for today. So, in terms of your niche, there's so many different things that are going to define it. People's age, gender, ideologies, and everything else that resonate with the stuff that you do, whatever it is. I'm probably going to use content as a reference just for ease of talking, otherwise I'll confuse myself. But if you're creating videos for people and you're not kind of tailoring them to the market that you want to kind of bring in and you want to have follow you, then there's no point you making those videos in the first place, because the people that you want to attract, they're not going to stick around. The people that you resonate with, they're not going to stick around because you're not making content for them. You're making content in a vein that you think's appropriate. And that's all well and good for doing something. But if you're trying to build an audience and find your own kind of collective in that sense, you have to listen to what's going on with them, not just with what's going on with you. And I think that's where I tripped up a lot at the beginning of the podcast. And I'm still struggling with it, but trying. Is like, we have this idea of what things are and what we want to do. Like, the initial idea of this podcast was to be sitting here talking to loads of different people on a weekly basis, having a different guest constantly, and just talking about their perspective of life. But it's changed, and it might get there down the line when things kind of change again or whatever else. But with that idea, I was chasing a certain kind of niche and trying to get down a certain kind of avenue or vein of like content or creation or audience or whatever it is. I can't think of the right word. But I was spending all of this time trying to get into that groove that I was missing the fact that that weren't even my groove to get in. Like, my whole kind of thing, I'm thinking anyway these days, like, this whole podcast and everything else, it doesn't make sense to everybody, but it makes sense to me. So to me, it's kind of like my backwards way of delivering life coaching or self-help or whatever is on my mind in a sense, really. Sometimes I just need to get things off my chest. And that's not always going to fit in the vein that I wanted it to kind of be originally, but at the same time, it's so much more me. Like, I'm not the person that has a studio that I can schedule different people into, this, that, and everything else. Like, that's not me. I'm the guy that still goes around working, still has like responsibilities outside of this, and I do a lot of other stuff rather than just simply sit here and talk nonsense. But that means I can't always do this to the best of my ability. Sometimes I'm tired, sometimes I'm fatigued, sometimes I'm just exhausted. But that's life. That's what I'm going through, and that's my experience. That's my niche. For me, I think everybody's experience adds value to them, and there are things that we can learn all throughout life. But bringing that out and trying to focus on that is difficult, and it's hard to sit there and click your fingers and try to turn it on. So all you can do is keep showing up. And this is why, like, I've kind of got multiple different jokes or different ways of saying it now, but it really is just about showing up. There is so many instances where you can hypothesize and you can think and you can plan and you can plot and scheme and whatever other words you want to use for it. But unless you go and do the work, you're not going to realize the things that you need to realize. Like, there are so many things that you'll figure out that are just fallacies, that are just nonsense and have no actual bearing. But because people don't know any better, they're so easily fooled. And I think that's why I named the first episode, or one of the first episodes of this podcast, Stepping Behind the Curtain. Because to me, that's what I was doing. I've never been in the kind of media making scene or whatever else. So all of this is learned firsthand, and I'm making a lot of mistakes. I'm doing things the hard way, and I tend to do that a lot in life. But hopefully I'm doing this the hard way so you don't have to. I'm learning the lessons the long way round so you can go through it a little bit quicker. And it's not to say everybody's going to get a shortcut. But it's to say that if we all share our experiences like this, everybody's a little bit more informed. And the more information that you have, the better you can make decisions. Like, some information you're going to have to dismiss. It's not going to apply to you, or it's not going to be relevant, or whatever else. Some information you're going to have to hold on to. That's down to your personal intelligence. I can't dictate that. But what I can do is show up and do the best that I can. And I've kind of realized that's my niche. For me anyway, it's showing up and sometimes doing things backwards, sometimes talking in circles, sometimes not saying what I mean to say, but kind of saying what I mean to say. That's my way of kind of building my own kind of empire of positivity. I wanted to just say empire there, but then it was just like, don't be such a tyrant. But hey, I do want my own empire. But again, when you say these things, sometimes they have negative connotations. But then you see my mind overthinking it and instantly going, put a cap on that. But it is okay. Like, I genuinely do believe that the world is abundant in many aspects. There is more than enough for all of us. There is more than enough land, food, energy, this, that, and everything else. We've just got to go about things the right way. And that's the same for life. Like, it's all about balance. Having a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like, lately, where I've been ill, I've been a glutton. Because I was so run down and deprived and just feeling, yeah, I didn't want to eat or anything. So for about a week, I ate next to nothing for a week. And now on the back end of that, my body's just like, eat everything. And that's now caused its own problems. So it's like, really and truly, you're going to go up, you're going to go down, but sometimes you just need to kind of mediate out in the middle. And you're going to mess up along the way. That's life. Nobody's perfect. The snippets of people's lives that you see, it's a snippet. it's very easy for that to be kind of misconstrued. And as always, we look at things through our own lens. Now, if you was to live that person's life, you probably wouldn't want it. And they probably wouldn't want yours. It's a really weird thing like that. Like, I think we all have been given the lives that we need, deserve, or however you want to say it, but it just takes a while to realize that. And when you do realize that your burdens, your blessings, and everything in between, they're yours to own and take pride in. It's not to kind of put you down or make your life harder than anybody else's. We all have our struggles. They're all different, but everybody's equipped for their battles. Whether that be just through your experiences equipped you to deal with the next experience, or that you're born with this innate instinct to deal with these certain things throughout your life. I think there's so many different ways in which that's going to go into such a tangent. But there's so many ways in which life can kind of unfold. You can look at it from so many different angles. That's why I like the name Perspective Chasers, although it's a bit of a mouthful. Like, there are so many different perspectives in life. The more perspectives that you take and the more ways that you look at things, the more differences you see, the more ways you kind of understand things. And there's more than one way to skin a cat, as the old saying goes. No animal is harmed in this. But there are so many ways in doing things that it's easy to kind of get overwhelmed in that sense. Kind of like being overwhelmed by choice. It's so easy to be overwhelmed by choice. Happens to me all the time. I don't really order food like on your phone. Damn, I sound old. I don't really order food on my phone, but when I do, it's just like there are so many choices. What the hell do I want to choose from? What do I want? What cuisine from the world do I want? Opposed to going like, there's a meal, I will eat it. Like, really and truly, if somebody put one or two plates of food in front of me when I'm hungry, I'll go that one or that one. That's it. Whereas if you put the entire menu of God knows how many restaurants in front of you at once and then say, what do you want to eat? Well, now I'm just blinded by choice. And that happens to us in so many instances in life. You look for a new job. Okay, well, what type of job do you want to do? Do you have a certain industry in mind and this, that, and everything else? And to tie it all back in, that also happens with your niche. It's just like, oh, well, I just want people. I just want an audience. But you have to do the work and look deeper. Look at the people that you want to resonate with. Like, what type of people do you want to connect with? What kind of audience do you want to have? What kind of connections do you want to build? What kind of uh, interactions do you want to have? Did I say that one? I don't know. But yeah, all of these different things, like, I don't believe in building a brand or a business or anything just for the sake of doing it. Like, I think there should be a level of intent behind these things. So if you're building something with intention, your niche is going to matter. So take the time in figuring out what it is. Look at who you're resonating with and who you want to resonate with. Are you hitting those marks? And if not, how can you hit them better? Like, all of these things are different kind of ideas that we have of ourselves and how that we think things should look and everything else, when the reality is probably far different than what we think. We've just got to go out there and figure it out and find out for ourselves. Like, so many of us are afraid to ask those questions, not just of ourselves, but of the world. Like, if you have this project or this idea, asking if it fits in or if there's a place for it in the world or if anybody's even going to be interested in it. Like, there are so many weird and wacky inventions out there and products and this, that, and everything else that have made people multi-millionaires. Don't talk yourself out of an idea. Just at least, at least have the willingness to find out. Because you never know, you might be sitting on $1 million idea of your own. There's only one way to find out, and that's to put it to the test. Put yourself to the test. Like, all of these different kind of aspects of kind of figuring out what you want to do and where you want to go and who you're going to resonate with and everything else. They're all pieces of the puzzle that you draw in over time. Like, no matter what brand you think of, they didn't start out how they have ended up in their peak. Like, they started out as a far different venture. Like, look at Amazon, for example. That started out as an online bookstore, and now look at it. Like, Tesla started out as a car company. Now look at them. They're getting into robotics, and you've got SpaceX and all of these other companies that are kind of branching out from it. Like, they all kind of spin around and this that, and everything else. Again, like, in terms of like SpaceX and X, or formerly Twitter, like, you start to notice patterns in other people's niches. So even in Elon's niche there, like, you can see he likes to use X. And even that will have its own kind of inclinations or kind of insights into his mind and how he works and the things that he does. And we all do this through our content. Like we was talking on the previous episode, Dave, with him, his personality and his wackiness and just sometimes his buffoonery, that's his niche, his personality and the way he conducts himself. That's his niche. Same with Elon and all of these other people. That a level of your personality is going to be your niche, depending on if you're a content creator or what, if you're a business person or how much you're in your limelight, in the limelight that is anyway. But again, like, if you're somebody that's completely in the shadows, your personality is really not going to matter. But again, it's about taking the time to figure out where your place is. If you don't take that time to figure out, like, oh, do I need to actually work on my public image, or does it even matter? Like, if I'm just a faceless CEO of a company, does it matter if I'm dressed in this, I drive this car or that car? Not really. But then if you're getting photographed everywhere you go and you're constantly in the news and everything else, these things might be a bit more of a priority to you, and your public image might be a lot more of a priority. So it's just about taking these times to kind of sit down with yourself and ask yourself the questions. As always, like, again, it's the one bit of advice that I always come back to on this podcast is sit down with yourself and ask yourself the question. I think that's the most important advice I can give anybody these days. Like, there is a mad realization that when I'm sitting on my phone scrolling, even if I'm interested in what I'm watching, the temptation to scroll off just for something to do if I'm watching a long video, I genuinely have to fight that idea. Like, it's literally just like an itch. Like when you're trying to get to sleep and your nose is starting to itch or tingle or whatever else, and you're just, oh, and you're just trying to ignore that thing. That's the same instance when, like, even if I'm interested in it and everything else, but it's just a long video, just for something to do because my phone's in my hand, I want to swipe, I want to do something with it. And we have to sit with ourselves and go, no, 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 no. Like, if you're actually interested in this thing, if you actually want to know what this is and watch the video or read the thing or whatever it is, you actually want to be present in the moment, be present in the moment. Like, it's hard to kind of think of a better way to say it, but I'm going to get distracted. But that's the thing, like, we are so easily distracted. So trying to hold on to that distraction, or that focus rather, and not lose your attention, that is such a battle in itself. So to now do that for other people, like, I understand why so many creators kind of give in to just wherever the kind of flock is flocking. um, because it's it's so easy to just cater to what people want and just give them that quick kind of payoff and this, that, and everything else. But it's not always doing them the best service. Sometimes you have to sit down for a while and really realize, like, that there's a journey going on. When I first started actually going through books properly, it took me a while to realize that the first half of a book is like that itchy nose. I just want to leave it alone or just ah, I, it's really hard to sit in that first half. But once you sit through and you see it starting to pay off in the back end, you understand it a lot more and you see everything kind of tying together and how all of the different layers intertwine, how different characters kind of build up and pay out, and how the kind of story arcs overall. Then it makes so much more sense, and that kind of itching, kind of like nuisance feeling goes away. And to relate the two, it's, I think there's one thing with having something in your hand that you're just tempted to kind of flick it away or just do something with it or fidget with it or whatever. But at the same time, like, we're always in a rush these days that our attention does that same thing where it's just like, okay, cool. Well, if this isn't an emergency or if this isn't important information, go away. And it's so easy to get caught up in that cycle. So like, sometimes you just have to break the pattern. I'm a creature of routine and habits. If I sit there and I actually look at my routine and I interrupt it for the better or worse, like I ended up falling off with my shorts. And I was in a good routine of doing them, but I had a bit of a hectic week and I was juggling everything and it all just got out of hand, so I fell off. That's fine. I ended up getting back on track, da 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 da. All well and good. But if I would have spiraled and been like, oh, how's this all gone off track? I'm failing, da ba 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 ba. Like, the problem just gets worse because I'm not helping the situation. I'm not doing anything to kind of better myself, the situation, or anything. I'm just snowballing, and that don't help anyone. So actually taking that time to sit, and it gets better. It gets easier, just like working out and training a muscle. Training your mind to actually sit down and think. Like nowadays, I will sit with my thoughts far more just by choice, or if I actually want to, like, if I'm having a conversation even via text with somebody and I'm doing something or watching something, I'll pause it and stop it so I can give it my full attention instead of kind of half-heartedly replying to these things and half-heartedly paying attention to whatever I was watching. Like, if I actually want to watch what I'm watching or reply to who I'm talking to, do one or the other. Don't do both because you can't do the two simultaneously to the best of your ability. So either you don't want to watch what you're watching or you don't want to talk to who you're talking to. Pick which one's more important. And sometimes having this choice, again, like the deer in headlights, depending on how many choices there are, we can freeze. So if you're getting bombarded by life and bombarded by all of these options and da 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 da, it's so easy to be like, oh, I just want to fit in. But there's somewhere to fit in for everybody. I'm trying to tie it back into the actual concept for the idea. So it's when you're trying, when you're actually like trying to build that niche and figure out who you are, sometimes you've just got to quiet the noise. Like there's so many types of content creators, there's so many types of businesses, there's so many types of fashion, there's so many types of art or whatever it is, that you'll find your own demographic, your own following or your own audience within it. If you just listen to yourself, and you get that by sitting with yourself. So take that time, and like taking that time is a lesson in itself. It takes time to get to that point in which you can take time. And yes, I know that sounds backwards and it's infuriating, and that's kind of the concept of this podcast now. But if you take the time to sit with your thoughts, it's infuriating. It's hard to take that time. We all say we ain't got time, we ain't got this, we ain't got that. But the reality is we do. You do have enough time. You've just got to make that time. It's uncomfortable. It's annoying. Yeah, you would rather be doing other things. But there's more important things for you to be doing. Once you start taking that time, once you start actually sitting with your ideas and thinking about your life, you'll realize how much of your life that you wasn't thinking about and you was just floating through and on autopilot. And then you can kind of, in time, it'll be uncomfortable because you realize, oh, damn, I've been neglecting my own life for this long. And then you'll beat yourself up for a little bit, but eventually be like, okay, cool. No more beating myself up. No more neglecting myself. Let's look at things. Then you'll look at things. And then you'll see a few things that you can improve and a few more things that you can't improve right now. You might get overwhelmed. But if you're proactive, you'll start on those small things. And then you'll notice life get a little bit better, or things get a little bit better. You start improving in whatever aspect you're trying to pursue. And then that kind of reassures yourself. And then it gets a little bit easier. And then you build that routine. And whatever aspect it be in life, whether it be going to the gym, building a business, socializing, whatever aspect of life you want to look at, this will be true. At first, it is very uncomfortable. And then you kind of climatize over time. You might fall off a couple of times. You ask yourself, do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? But then you get back on and you realize you do actually want to do it. And it makes life better. So then you start doing it a little bit more. And then you realize life gets even better. And then you start preaching it to other people. And then you start to realize the kind of saying of the best way to learn something is to teach it to somebody else. Well, now you're teaching it to somebody else, and now you're really passionate about it. And people are asking you, how the hell did you get there? And you're like, well, I don't know. Because sometimes life just sweeps you away, but you showed up for it. You put in that work and you looked at life. You asked yourself those questions that other people didn't want to ask. And that's the important thing, is doing the things that others don't. Not flocking with the rest of the sheep, but actually stopping, looking where you're going, what you're doing. There might be a better patch of grass over there. If you just leave the herd, if you just put your head up long enough and look around for yourself, you might find a better way. You might find your own way. You might find your own audience. The possibilities are endless, but you have to take those actions. You have to give it to yourself. You have to give yourself the time. You have to give yourself the energy. You have to give yourself the effort. Like, it's so easy for us to say that we don't have this time, we don't have the energy, da 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 da. I work a job, I have kids, I have this, I have that. Yeah, we all do. But unfortunately, if you want to get out of the cycles that you don't want to be in, you have to sacrifice a little bit more for a while so you can get out of it. And that means sacrificing that time so you can build that business, sacrificing those friendships you can get in better shape or whatever else. Sacrificing a little bit of money so you can build a business or kind of go on holiday and actually relax with life a little bit. Sacrificing some of your socializing time so you can focus on your health and getting better, or your relationships or whatever. Like, whatever it may be, there's going to be an area in which it's going to get a bit uncomfortable before it gets better. But take solace in the fact that if it is uncomfortable, it means it's going to get better. It's not always going to be rough. Like I tried to say on the last episode, it's a bad day, not a bad life. That's going to be true on many days. But there are going to be so many more days where that ain't true at all. That it's a good life. And you can feel that, and you can think overall that things ain't so bad. You do have things to be happy for. You have things to be grateful for. You have people to be grateful for. Life is abundant. We just have to see the abundance in the world. If we're out there telling ourselves that there's scarcity and everybody's at each other's throats, but then you walk down the street and nobody says anything to each other, really. And we all build these ideas of the world, but no one idea of the world is true. There's an actual world out there that you've got to go and witness for yourself, and we'll all witness it differently. So don't hold on to any one idea too much. Try to just understand everybody's going about their life. You're going about your life, they're going about their life. They can't feel what you feel, you can't feel what they feel. But we're all going through it and we're all feeling different things. So try to have a bit of understanding for other people. I think I'm going to wrap the episode up there because I've gone in a few tangents. Got I got life to do as well. But the seed for this episode is going to be, try to take some time, not just out to relax, but out to think. Think about where you can improve your life. Like, it's February now, so people have probably failed on their New Year's resolutions and all of that. It doesn't matter. It's just a New Year's resolution. If you want your life to get better, you can do that at any time. We've said that previously on the podcast, and we'll say it till we're blue in the face. Take the time whenever you want, whenever you can. It might be the middle of the night. It might be first thing in the morning. It might be 10 minutes in the car after you get back from work. But take that time. You deserve it and you need it. That's where you realize what you want to do, what you're passionate about, what your niche is, and all of these other things. Like, it all happens when you actually stop and let things sit with yourself for a minute. Let the ideas actually stop running rampant and come to a halt so you can pick through them and sort them and organize them. At least that's how it works in my mind. All the best, and I'll catch you on the next one.